at high coverage levels. Community demand for the vaccine is strong. It has broad reach to children, including the most vulnerable, who may not use a bed net, thereby expanding access to preventive measures to children at risk. It is safe. It significantly reduces life-threatening severe malaria, and we estimate it to be highly cost-effective.
Today's recommendation therefore offers a glimmer of hope for the continent. We expect many more African children will be protected from malaria and grow into healthy and productive adults. I'd like, in my turn, to commend Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi for leading the pilot program for the RTSS vaccine. The same kind of political leadership, multi-sectoral action, and community engagement that we've seen in response to COVID-19 will be vital to drive action to save lives and prevent ill health from malaria. Together, we should accelerate action towards a future free from malaria, and the RTSS vaccine, as part of a comprehensive set of actions, can help us to get there.
Now, I'd like us to talk to Dr. Patricia Njuguna, the evaluation leader at the World Health Organization, on this matter about the malaria vaccine. A very good morning to you, Dr. Njuguna, joining us by way of Zoom. First of all, congratulations for this remarkable achievement. And questions have been raised about how quick the COVID vaccine, if we could draw parallels, because there's a new awareness about vaccination uptake in Africa especially. And questions have been raised about how quick the COVID vaccine took to be developed, and perhaps that narrative have been exploited by people who are against the vaccine. So how long did it take to develop and test the malaria vaccine, and how extensive were the feasibility tests conducted?
So, thank you and good morning, and for letting me come on to speak about the malaria vaccine, a subject close to my heart. So I'll start by saying that where we are now is a result of over 30 years of research and development. This clinical trials to determine the importance of this vaccine began way back in the 1990s with clinical trials in the US, and then came down to Africa in the 2000s. And we had the pivotal phase 3 trial that you mentioned in 2009 to 2014. So there has been a long period of progressive research and development with collaboration across multiple countries. And we have now, we have an effective vaccine, as was said by both Dr. Tedros and Dr. Moet.
Now, again, borrowing a lot from the ongoing COVID-19 vaccination campaign, most African countries are experiencing immense challenges in administering the jab due to issues about cost, availability, and voluntary uptake. Have you experienced these challenges during the trial phase, and do you expect similar challenges going forward? And if at all, how do you plan, or how do you tend to go about it?
So in the clinical trials that you refer to, that is a voluntary involvement of parents and their children, and we have we have informed consent for that phase of trial or testing of the vaccine. In the most recent pilot evaluation that began in 2019 across the 3 countries, Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi, this was a pilot introduction through routine systems. So this was introduced through the Ministries of Health EPI programs, and this was introduced through the routine systems, and parents who wanted their child to receive the vaccine would come to the vaccination clinic as with other antigens. So when you go to a vaccine clinic, the health worker will offer you the vaccine, and you will take it up for your child. And parents who decline to take vaccines do not attend vaccine clinics. There is a lot of community engagement that happens, not just for the malaria vaccine, but for all vaccines. You will often see in the media, they speak about HPV, measles vaccine, polio vaccine, because it is important to continue engaging with our persons who will take the vaccine, to remind them of the importance of the vaccine, and why they should take it up for their children. We do know that vaccines do protect children against diseases that are of great importance and have a great impact in terms of disease and death. And so we are building on existing platforms, and that is what has made it the successful uptake of the malaria vaccine. As you see, we went through the routine systems, and parents were able to take this vaccine up following proper information from health workers.
And of course, the biggest challenge when it comes to vaccines in Africa could be the availability of the doses required, because probably in Kenya the population keeps growing year on year. And how available are these vaccines? Is there a cost implication to it? Do the parents have to pay for it?
So these vaccines are introduced via the routine systems, and through the routine systems, the Ministry of Health in Kenya have made vaccines available for free, all vaccines for children who present to the clinic. So we do not anticipate that this would change in the case of the malaria vaccine. Of course, there will be a cost to the government, and the government does bear that by the procurement of vaccines and the attendant syringes that are used to provide the vaccine. But the vaccines would be free to the end user, as with other routine vaccines.
Okay, and what generally does it mean to the fight against malaria? Because for years now, governments and other health authorities have been insisting on the use of insecticide-treated mosquito nets as a best way to prevent malaria spread and infection. Does this mean that now there is a vaccine that we will have to do away with the use of bed nets?
So that's a very good question. So what we know in the field of malaria is that we have a lot of imperfect tools. So we have bed nets, and even when we look at the use of bed nets in Western Kenya, where we have the highest prevalence of malaria, we still have a large burden of disease and death from malaria happening despite the use of bed nets and use of effective test and treatment for disease. So this is an additional tool into the arsenal against malaria. And what is important is that as we layer on the tools, we do get progressive increase we continue to provide additional benefits to the children in the protection against malaria. So no, we would, as we did in the pilot evaluation, we continue to ask parents to continue to use bed nets. If they're unwell, they should take their child to a health facility to seek care, appropriate care, where they should be tested for malaria and treated for malaria, and if malaria is not found, treated for whatever other disease is identified.
Are we therefore expecting to see that the same kind of treatment that is being administered as anti-malaria to continue even alongside these vaccines?
So we expect the National Malaria Control Program will continue to advise on the appropriate treatment for malaria for both children who are seen in the clinics and those who are admitted. So that should continue. And where they need to make changes, they would advise accordingly.
Okay, because this has taken a lot of time, 30 years to actually come up with these vaccines. I'm sure there are projections in terms of numbers, because 260,000 African children under the age of 5 die annually from the disease. Now, going forward with the administration of this vaccine, what will the numbers, what kind of projections are we looking at probably in the next 5-10 years?
So at this moment, we know that the vaccine does lead to a 30% reduction in severe malaria. In the next 2 years, we will be able to anticipate what would be the reduction in terms of deaths. But we do know that most children, children with severe malaria may then continue on without appropriate care and treatment to death. So we think that that's a significant impact and would go a long way to the reduction of that number, 260,000, which is quite unfortunate.
160,000 in about how long? Because this 260,000 annually, probably in the next 10 years, it will go down to 160,000 deaths annually. Is that what I got? Just a clarification there.
No, I'm just clarifying that from the pilot evaluation and the clinical studies, we did show that you have a 30% reduction in severe malaria.
Okay.
We do not have the information for the impact on deaths or mortality that you're referring to, but we anticipate that that data would be available going forward.
Okay, and finally, as we wind up this interview, the vaccine is mainly intended for children before the age of 5. What does this mean for the rest of the population, the adults, probably even people who intend to visit the tropics from other regions? Can they use this vaccine, or it's only intended for children?
So currently the vaccine is targeted for children under 5, and the label currently focuses on children up to 17 months of age for the first dose. What we do know is not just the malaria vaccine, but all vaccines are targeted at the age group that bears the most burden of disease. And you yourself have reflected that most of the burden of disease and death is in children under 5. In adults, we do know that adults living in areas that are endemic or have malaria, they generate immunity over time and therefore are more protected, whereas children are at the greatest risk for disease and death. So at this time, this vaccine would be focused for where the highest disease and burden is, as is other vaccines such as polio, measles, and the Haemophilus influenza. So this is not a change in approach.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Njuguna, Evaluation Lead at the World Health Organization, helping us understand the progress made in this remarkable achievement. The World Health Organization saying the only approved vaccine against malaria will now be distributed widely to African children henceforth. This is News Center. We take another break. We'll be back with more news.
This is KTN News. Success of every brand starts and ends with those that they serve. The ones who believe the brand speaks to their values. The ones who believe that the brand walks with them side by side. Grounded on a heritage to serve, we at the Standard Group put nothing but the audience first. Guided by positivity, togetherness, and a vibrant work culture, our brand can only be our pride. But without you, there is no us. For over 100 years, serving you has been the driving force for our willpower. This Customer Service Week, we thank you for inspiring us to cater to you by showing what the true power of service can look like and make your day count.
Inaonekana wakilishi wetu katika huko parliament hawazungumzi pamoja, kila mmoja anatoa maoni yake mbalimbali. Kama wangalikutana pamoja, ni wajiulize shida yetu ni nini, kiini cha kutoa na kutokuwa na katiba mpya ni nini.